We are live. All right, y'all, welcome to another Live at 5 session. This time, it is a gardening horticulture session with Mary Helen Ferguson. I pointed the wrong way. Mary Helen Ferguson. She is a horticulture agent, so she's here to answer y'all's questions and help with what you got. Thank you for being here today. Really appreciate it. And so I just want to talk about how extension agents are working remotely nowadays. So what's the best way to contact y'all right now?
Email, definitely email.
Email, okay. So everyone joining us today, make sure to email your agent. You can find agents on the LSU Ag Center website. And of course, you can ask any questions you want. So we're going to take some questions now. We actually took some beforehand. So I'm going to start with one of our questions from Nikki. She asked, why is my tomato plant producing flowers but not setting fruit?
So there's a number of reasons why flowers will drop from vegetable plants at different times. And right now, my best guess would be low nighttime temperature. Now, the last few days, we've had pretty warm nights, but if it gets below about 55 at night, blossoms will drop from tomatoes. So that's one possible reason. If they were not pollinated for some reason, that's another reason why they would drop. You know, tomatoes do, they're bee assisted with pollination. So they're self-fertile, but they need some vibration to drop that pollen. If the bees weren't active, that could be a reason. If we had too much nitrogen fertilizer, that can be a reason. Later on, we get this question later on in the season, and at that time, sometimes when temperatures are above 90, we also see blossom drop without pollination, but that's not our problem right now.
Okay, thank you. We got another one that comes to tomato plants again. They were asking for tomato planting tips right now since everyone's out there gardening, basically creating victory gardens, and they were wanting variety recommendations as well.
Right, so you have a lot of tomato variety options. You know, you may, depending on what you want, some people want a determinate variety where it's going to grow to a certain point and then set a terminal bud and stop and not get any taller. Some people want an indeterminate variety where it's going to grow and grow and grow up a trellis. And then some people want like little, you know, cherry tomatoes or small tomatoes. So there's a lot of different options out there depending on what you want. I'm going to show you, I'm going to do a screenshot of our tomato growing guide. There's two things I want you to know about. We have our Louisiana vegetable planting guide, which has a lot of good information. Anybody who just wants basic vegetable gardening information, planting times, variety recommendations, spacing, all that, that is in our Louisiana vegetable planting guide. And then we also have like individual fact sheets about growing different vegetables. So what I'm going to attempt to do is do a screen, show you the screen, how to find that on our website. So we will try that.
All right, there we go.
Okay, so this is actually our vegetable portal. And to get to this point, I'm actually going to back up a little bit and show you how to get there. So if you go to our main Ag Center site, which is not where I'm going right now, but just let's pretend that you go to our main Ag Center site and you go to, you scroll down our main Ag Center site to where it says Lawn and Garden. There's a round button that says Lawn and Garden, and you're going to click on that, and then you're going to select Fruits, Nuts, and Vegetables. And from Fruits, Nuts, and Vegetables, that's where we are right now, I'm going to click on the last tab on the left-hand side, which says Vegetables. And this has a lot of good information. If you scroll down there, you've got under individual crops, that's where you're going to have the fact sheet about how to grow tomatoes specifically. And it's got basic production information, variety recommendations, and all that. It's fairly short. And again, that's in the individual crops section. And then our Louisiana vegetable planting guide is under the references section. And that, or at least I think it is. I'm sorry, that's not that. If you do a search on the internet for Louisiana vegetable planting guide, you will get our basic planting guide, and that is, it's about 8 pages long, and it's a very good basic guide to growing vegetables. So I would suggest looking at there. just just in terms of general varieties, I mean, there's a whole lot depending on what you like. Celebrity is a popular determinate variety. I still like Better Boy in terms of indeterminate varieties, but there's a lot of different options out there. So check out those two guides for basic tomato growing information.
Thank you. I'm like, that's really helpful just because everybody's out there growing vegetables right now. So again, that would be a place to go, guys, for a vegetable farm guide. We have a question from Nancy. Can I hide that? Are you good with it now, Mary Helen?
What's that?
Are you good? Can I hide your screen there?
Oh, sure.
The screen share? All right.
Sure.
There we go. So we've got a question from Nancy asking, my tiny oranges are disappearing. Do you think it's birds? A couple have dropped. Half the tiny green oranges are gone this week.
Birds could have gotten some. Now, citrus will drop naturally. So I don't know. You didn't think you're finding it on the ground. But there are different stages of the year when citrus will drop. And one of them is kind of like post-bloom. So it's not unusual for some citrus fruit to drop.
Gotcha. There you go, Nancy. If you have another question, you just let us know. So y'all can comment with any questions you have right now. Mary Helen is available. So we have another one from Ashley, and she asked, if my strawberries are sweet and now they're sour, what happens?
There's a lot of different things that will affect the fruit, the taste of fruit, including strawberries. One thing that you might look at is whether you had more water at the time that they became less flavorful. You know, if you have sugar and it becomes more diluted by water, then it's going to taste less sweet. Now, just looking at the weather we've had, you know, I know February was fairly wet, March has been fairly dry, so I'm not sure that will be your reason. Another thing so the fertilization can affect the taste of strawberries as well. And I don't know, you know, what you've been fertilizing with. People have found that, and I'm look at this from more of a commercial grower standpoint, people who have fertilized with calcium nitrate exclusively as their nitrogen source, found in some cases that does not lead to as good flavor as when people use a potassium nitrate source or some sort of potassium fertilizer within that fertilizer regime. So as a home gardener, I don't know, you know, what type of fertilizer you would have been using, but if you're using like a nitrogen only source or one that doesn't include potassium, you might consider, like even a Miracle Grow or something like that was going to include some potassium. So that's something to look at, but we don't always know why the flavor of strawberries changes over the season, but it most certainly does. We do see, you know, one variety will taste really good at one point and not so hot at another point.
Okay, that's fair enough. We've had a lot of questions lately, like on the Ag Center's page about thorns on citrus. So could you kind of elaborate on that one? Because I think that's a big one that we've had a lot of questions on lately.
Okay. Well, the biggest issue where people end up with thorns on citrus is if they have rootstock growth. So citrus fruit are almost all grafted onto something called trifoliate orange. And this is something related to citrus. It's a different genus but it produces growth that is very, very thorny. It does have a fruit, but it's not one that you want to eat. And so if it's coming from the very bottom near the soil, then that could be the problem. You could have growth from the rootstock. This happened a lot when we have a cold winter and the top gets killed and people get regrowth from the rootstock. And, you know, people are like, well, is it still good? No, I mean, unless you're going to bud onto that, then, you know, that's just your rootstock there. But sometimes also some of the good part of citrus will sometimes be thorny as well. So that is a characteristic of citrus. Not anything, as long as your plant has not been killed back to the rootstock, then just, you know, be careful when you handle it. As long as it's still producing, is it still the scion that you want, whether it be a kumquat or a lemon, whatever, then, you know, that's okay.
Okay, thank you. We've had a lot of questions on that. Will is asking, I planted zipper cream cowpeas last year. The plants grew very large but had low pod production. Was I supposed to inoculate the seeds?
So if you're in a field where you haven't grown them before, sometimes you do need to inoculate legumes with the rhizobium strain that is specific to that type of legume. But really, probably a more probable reason for that is over fertilization with nitrogen. You know, I don't know how much you put out, but you don't want to over fertilize southern peas or cowpeas or black-eyed peas because you can reduce some of these crops that don't take a lot of fertilizer, or even ones like tomato that do. If you overdo the nitrogen, you can reduce fruit production, or when, you know, and peas are a fruit, they're seed. So if we overdo nitrogen, we can get a lot of leafy growth, but not a lot of production of the vegetative part that we typically eat.
Hope that helps, Will. She just gave you a very thorough answer. Thanks, Mary Helen. Let us know, Will, in the comments if you have any other questions. Jean-Pierre is asking, we have an infestation of aphids on our pepper plant. We purchased some ladybugs to help combat it. What are your thoughts on that?
So ladybugs, I mean, they certainly are beneficial insects that their larvae will prey on aphids. Ladybugs can sometimes fly away. You know, they don't necessarily stay there, but they may. So that's fine. So with aphids, you may just want to take a hose and give it a good spray of water. Sometimes that will knock aphids off pretty well. A strong spray of water, or in home garden, something like insecticidal soap. An insecticidal soap product labeled for use on those peppers. That was good for soft-bodied insects. Now, you do have to have good contact, you know, with these things like insecticidal soap and horticultural oil. When we use those as an insecticide, we've got to have direct contact with the insect because it's based on a physical action. It's not like the insect can come along later and step in it and die. So insecticidal soap, or, you know, just a strong spray of water may be helpful. But using insecticidal soap rather than some of the other insecticides that would have more residual effect, that's also going to allow your beneficial insects to continue to survive.
Okay. T is asking, I'm looking for a leafy lettuce or spinach to grow in South Louisiana summers. Can you do that? Is there a recommendation?
I would have to look that up. I have heard of Malabar spinach, but I'm not that familiar with, so that's something I would have to check on. We do have I don't know about that. That's something I would have to look up.
Okay. Anna's saying there's a noise interference on the broadcast. I might have to check that out in a minute. Please let us know, y'all, if there is a noise interference. Is your phone on? Question, Mary Helen?
What's up?
Is your phone on at all, like with us? Okay, I was just wondering. Y'all let us know if there is a noise interference. We have another question. Okay, so Mike bought 2 peach trees. One died. Can you take a fruit tree and graft a branch from another tree of the same type? And will it then be able to self-pollinate without actually having the other tree?
So yes, you can graft. You know, there are situations where people have grafted or budded more than one variety onto one rootstock or one plant. But in the case of peaches, you actually don't need cross-pollination. So in a lot of cases with fruit crops, we do need cross-pollination. So whether that be because of a male-female flower issue or self-incompatibility or something like that, like with blueberries, we get more production with more than one variety cross-pollinating. With pecans, it's like some of the flowers and when the male and female flowers produce pollen or receptors. But with peaches, they actually self-pollinate. So you could bud on to your other plant, but you don't need to because you only need one variety of peach to produce. But peach production is difficult in Louisiana, so FYI. It's a lot of disease pressure.
I have another question for you, Mary Helen. Guys, y'all are saying that there's noise interference. I just checked something. Is the noise interference still there? Please let us know. I'm not quite sure what's going on. But anyways, could you give us, I guess, talk about your favorite topic, Mary Helen, because I'm going to try to figure out this audio issue for a minute.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, I guess talk about favorite topic. I mean, blueberries, that's pretty much my favorite crop. I did my dissertation research on blueberries. I'm from a part of Louisiana where we have wild blueberries grown naturally. I'm hanging out here with my parents during this time. and take a walk in the neighborhood, and I see what we call huckleberries. I grew up calling a huckleberry, but I learned, I was at NC State doing my master's in horticulture and had a blueberry breeder there. And so I talked to him about these things that we used to call huckleberries. And he said, well, that's actually Elias blueberry. So I noticed some fruit on some the other day. And then there's some other wild blueberries like sparkleberries we find in the woods. So that's something I like a whole lot. And we're getting ready to put in a rabbit eye blueberry, actually rabbit eye and southern highbush blueberry variety demonstration at the Hammond Research Station. And in fact, when I looked at my phone to make sure it wasn't making any noise of any sort, I had a text from one of my coworkers at the research station who is helping watch over my blueberry plants until I get back. And so it says they're still doing good. So I'm glad about that. And we're going to try about 17 different rabbit eye varieties. There's a lot of these varieties that have been grown in Louisiana for, and in the southeastern United States for a long time. Things like Tip Blue and Climax, Premier, Brightwell, Powder Blue. But there's a lot of newer rabbit eye blueberry varieties. And so we want to try those out. And I know that there's growers and home gardeners that have tried those in their own yard, but there have not been a lot of evaluation by LSU of some of those varieties. So we're going to check those out and see if they get enough chill hours here, if they bloom too early and the flowers get killed by frost, if they just tend to survive well here. And then to try some southern highbush varieties. These typically have been more difficult to grow and in the soil here. They are more finicky about soil conditions. And so we're going to try some of those with some heavy soil amendment with pine bark and just see if some of these will do well, because they do produce fruit earlier and some people like the fruit quality better. So I think Anna's back, and I'll stop rambling about blueberries.
No, guys, I think the audio has been. I could still hear it again. Okay, I might just have to go off Mary Helen when you're talking.
Okay.
Because I'm not sure what's going on. So I'm going to ask you another one. It said, I think it has to do with my computer. Sumner said I read about keeping tomato cuttings removed for 24 hours and then spraying it on the tomatoes to get rid of aphids. Does this really work?
So what was the soaking what now?
He read online about keeping tomato cutting and leaves for 24 hours and then spraying it on the tomatoes to get rid of aphids. Does this really work?
I have not heard of that. So I cannot say yes or no for that, but that's not something I've heard of.
Okay. I was just wondering. Can you turn me on your side, Mary Helen? Because I can hear myself on your computer. Maybe I don't know which side it's on. Your audio?
I can't turn this.
Okay. Can you turn the volume down at all or no?
Oh, yeah, I can do that.
Just try it a little bit. I was just wondering.
Okay, how's that?
Let me hear it. I don't know. I still think it's my side. So anyways, guys, sorry about that. I'm just going to have to go off when Mary Helen talks. But anyways, so we have another one. This is a unique question. We have a question from Nikki about silver drop eucalyptus growing tips. Silver drop eucalyptus.
Right. So eucalyptus is certainly, it can be grown here in terms of cold hardiness. The exact soil pH for eucalyptus, I'm not 100% sure what that would be. My suspicion is it's something a little more alkaline than we naturally have, but we can adjust soil pH up with lime or down with sulfur. So other than, I don't have any particular growing tips for eucalyptus other than just I need to find out what the ideal pH of the soil would be. It may be something that's going to need a relatively dry site. So there are going to be some plants that just don't do very well here because the soil stays so wet in certain areas, and that varies by where you are in the state. You know, I know up in the northern part of the area that I work, northern Tangamo Parish and Washington Parish, there's some very well-drained areas that, there's plenty of distance between the surface of the soil and the water table and, maybe on a slope and stuff like that. But we still get, even in an average year, which I don't know that we've had lately, we get, I think, something like 60 inches of rain a year. And so that's a lot of moisture for some of these plants that don't like wet feet. So, and especially then in like the southern part of my area, and all that, we have a lot of areas where the water table is can be within 4 inches of the surface or so. So there's just a lot of plants that don't do terribly well here because of some plants that don't take the amount of rainfall, the amount of precipitation that we get very well. And eucalyptus may be one of those, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. We've been getting a lot of questions lately on the Ag Center site about when is the best time to like prune azaleas. Do you have any comments on that one?
Sure. So azaleas, right after they finish flowering, it would be advised. Now, you can go later than that. I did some checking not long ago, kind of see like, at what point is the latest we want to do this? And that's determined by when the flowers, buds are going to be initiated for the next year, because we don't want to prune and take off flower buds for the next year. And not that we can see them, but the process that goes down in the plant. So in some places we'll say like don't prune after the end of June, but we don't know exactly when that process occurs. So, and if you prune while it's still a little bit cooler, you're giving the plant, it's less stressful on the plant when it goes to recover. So really prune azaleas right after they're finished flowering.
Okay. So I'm based out of Baton Rouge. There's a lot of ball moss here. Could you elaborate on that? Because we get a lot of questions on ball moss.
Okay, so yes, when I was in Baton Rouge and I was working at a plant diagnostic plant for a little bit, I had a call about that, and it got kind of thinking about it. So the kind of the standard thought had been, well, I mean, it's not ball moss is not, it's kind of like lichen in the sense that it doesn't actually directly take nutrients from the plant, but it does take up like a site on the limb, and it can, prevent some light from getting to the plant maybe and stuff like that. So there was some research done by a guy named Dr. Gerald Holcomb, who's now retired, but he still visits the plant pathology department once in a while. And he did some work looking at using baking soda as a way to control ball moss. And there's a Louisiana agriculture article out there that tells the rate, and I have it written down somewhere, I've sent it to people before, but the percentage or the amount of baking soda per gallon or whatever it is to control ball moss. I did the math for whatever he had figured out how many tablespoons per gallon or whatever, but I don't remember off the top of my head. So that's something that can be used. Now we have there's a ball moss fact sheet that put out by our diagnostic clinic, and I think it might mention copper or something. But that baking soda, we can get you that information. It is out there in the Louisiana Agriculture article that was put out maybe 10 years ago about this research Dr. Holcomb did on using baking soda. But you don't want it. You got to be careful with a sprayer. Something might corrode a sprayer if you leave it in there. So be careful with that.
Do you know if what does LSU use to control ball moss?
I don't know if they're doing anything right now. At one point, they were using the baking soda stuff.
Okay. T was asking, I just bought rhubarb crowns. Where should I plant it? Sun, shade? I'm getting mixed info. Also, is it possible to control growth in baby plants? And they're in Lake Charles.
Okay. Rhubarb, as a rule, does not tend to do well. It's too hot. But, whenever we say, I'm never going to say, like, you can't do it. Almost never, because, somebody will be like, well, I did it. Here's how I did it. So that's, but generally rhubarb is something that we do not have much success with in Louisiana. Too hot. As far as a planting, just without looking up any more information, I would say maybe some afternoon shade, just to take a little bit of the heat toll off of it, and an area that's well drained. But beyond that, we do have, we have a vegetable book that you can buy online that has some of our more unusual vegetables in it. And I'm going to I have it in front of me just because I anticipated I might get some questions like that, and see if it addresses rhubarb. It doesn't look like it addresses rhubarb, and I think that's just because there has not been a good track record for growing rhubarb in Louisiana. work in North Carolina, and even there, it was not something that was easy to grow.
Okay. Rick's asking, other than diving into commercial seed, what lettuce varieties will produce well in shade during the hottest months of the summer? That's a tricky one.
Other than the specific varieties that we, recommended in our publications, I can't say any specifically are going to produce better than others in the shade. Lettuce and these vegetables that do not produce a fruit, or a fruit, or like, potato, whatever, do tend to, you can grow them in a little bit of shade, because you're growing a leaf. You're not having it's not having to produce a fruit or something. So, it's just probably going to be a matter of maybe a little less vigorous production. But off the top of my head, I don't know a specific variety that's going to do better.
Matt is asking, is there anything I can do to grow big leaf magnolias in heavy clay?
Well, so I don't know, Matt, what part of the state you're in. I know a lot of times when people
I actually know him. He's based in Baton Rouge.
Okay.
Around Baton Rouge.
So I so many people in the area where I work in Tangipahoa, and even back when I worked in Livingston, they'll have clay. Well, I've never seen an actual clay soil in the area where I work. When I look at soil survey and stuff like that, we have a lot of fairly heavy soil that might be silt loam or something like that. But I used to see clay in North Carolina, and what we have here, I've not seen clay. But so in terms of when we're just trying to make a soil more favorable for plant growth, some sort of organic amendment may help you to loosen up that soil. If you can till in something like pine bark or something like that to kind of loosen that up. But specifically for big leaf magnolia, I'd have to look up if there's anything special about that. But when we plant a tree in general, wanting to dig a hole that's at least 2 to 5 times as wide as the root ball of the plant and no deeper than the root ball of the plant, because we don't want that plant to sink over time as the soil settles. So same depth as the root ball, 2 to 5 times as wide. And that gives it a chance to, when we dig that big hole and we put the soil that we pulled out back in, we don't want to heavily amend the planting hole itself. So you don't want to just dig out that area and then come back and put a potting soil back in, because if we do that, the plant may do okay for a while, but eventually that plant is going to have to put its roots out into the native soil in order to survive. And so we want, if we're going to amend a soil to plant something, we want to mix that all in together. So we can treat it as if we're amending a raised bed type of situation, do that, and maybe till in a couple of inches of organic matter into a large area, and then plant, dig out our hole and plant in there. So those are just general tree planting tips.
Dan Cook says, MHF is so cool.
Hey, Dan.
So anyways, also, I want to ask you a heated topic about crepe myrtles and the whole thing about crepe murder.
Okay.
When people top off their crepe myrtles, when people top them, they call that crepe murder. What are your thoughts on it? How does that work?
Well, I think it's ugly, but I also think it's your tree and you do what you want. But from a scientific perspective, problems with that are that you're opening up large wounds. And so when you open up large wounds, then you're giving a chance for, decay organisms and insects and stuff to get in. And quite honestly, crepe myrtles are so resilient that, we don't often see a crepe myrtle just dying, right? But on a lot of plants, when you open up a large wound like that, then you can have some problems. It doesn't tend to, if you do it like that at the tip, it doesn't tend to compartmentalize quickly. Another issue is that you get, sometimes, of course, when you make a large cut like that, you get a proliferation of branches. And sometimes they're not very well attached. They're not very strongly attached. And so you can actually have situations where you make cuts like that, and then you get all of these little sheets coming out, and you get a heavy rainfall, and some of them just fall off. So Now, there is this whole pollarding thing that's like a European thing more than a US thing. And so that's actually where they'll go in and starting when the plant is young, I believe, make a cut like at the same place year after year. And so you're developing kind of a knuckle on that plant. And if you go in, let's say, you start out when this plant is small, you make that cut. And then each year when you come back and cut to the same place, you're not cutting into that knuckle, you're cutting into those little sheets that are coming off of it. So you're still not leaving huge wounds. You're cutting off small branches still. I believe that's how it's done. And that's what makes that different from what we call crepe murder. And not opening up these huge wounds on that plant.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. I like your perspective. That's different. I have another one. So we received this question earlier, and it was about a wasp that was basically like killing a monarch caterpillar. Do you know anything about that?
Not specifically. I mean, certainly we have parasitoid wasps, and a lot of times those are kind of almost microscopic. And those sometimes you'll see, like with a tomato hornworm, you'll see a tomato hornworm that has all these little white cocoons on its back. And I believe those are parasitoid wasp cocoons. So that's our friend, that's actually killing our tomato hornworm for us. So there's actually a lot of cool beneficial insect stuff that goes on if you start looking with a hand lens and stuff like that. I know I spent some time scouting peppers and would see a lot of minute parrot bugs. So minute parrot bugs are one of our beneficial insects. I can't remember. I think it's like one minute parrot bug can control like 40 thrips. So it's pretty amazing. We talked earlier about ladybug larvae. You see those sometimes, lacewing larvae. Those eat a lot of aphids. I have a good picture I took of it's called a spine soldier bug. And I have a picture of it like holding a cucumber beetle in its mouth. So that really does happen. Sometimes it's hard to control the beneficial insect stuff in a field. In a greenhouse, people can do that a little bit better because you can keep them from flying away. But I kind of like the approach of, let's use insecticides as little as, in such a way that we're minimizing the effect of our insecticides on our beneficial insects. And, sometimes we have to use insecticides for commercial production in order to get the crop and the appearance that the clients want. But, it's something to think about because there is a good deal of beneficial activity that can go on as long as these are, not being killed off.
Fair enough. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We'll take one last question from Larry. I know this is actually a Texas question, so I'm not sure you can answer this one, but it says, do you have any suggestions for a type of plant that would grow well in a dry, arid soil in Texas? I don't want to have to provide much maintenance. Just plant it with some good bone meal added to soil and watch it grow.
So I have worked in Louisiana. I've worked in North Carolina. I have never worked in an arid region of the country. So my experience is firmly in the South of the United States. And the part that is acidic has acidic soil and a lot of rainfall. So I know that Texas A&M, and actually I was looking on their website earlier today. They have Texas A&M has a lot of good information on their website, and they have a section called Earth Kind Landscaping. And so I would definitely suggest checking with your local extension agent and checking out the Texas A&M website and for that information.
Great, thank you. We'll take the last question. T's asking, does the book cover indoor microgreens growth? I think your book that you were talking about earlier.
I don't think it does. It's a home gardening guide, and it does cover. I mean, it certainly covers greens, mustards, turnips, collards, and it covers lettuce. But it doesn't specifically cover any sort of greenhouse or indoor production.
Okay, gotcha. Well, thank you so much for being here today, and thanks for doing this for us. And just remember, our agents are working remotely, so they are available Monday to Friday if you need them. And make sure to email, correct, Mary Helen?
That's right. And if you go to the main LSU Ag Center site, I mean, one of the top things you'll see is that email your agent. I think Anna had that set up so that you'll know where to go if you don't know who your agent is, then you can go there, or you can just Google your local extension office website, and it should show you who has responsibilities for horticulture in your area.
Awesome. Well, thank y'all. Y'all tune in next time, and we really appreciate the questions. And thank you again, Mary Helen.
You're welcome. Good to see you.